Hey everyone, this is Tell the Truth Sports Radio. I'm your host, Ron Fitch, and I'm going to tell you the truth about why the Colts won. My upset special of the week, if you're a bettor. And I have boxing scenes and CBS Sports Keith Idec. He's going to talk about the Crawford Brook fight. And he has some really good insights. He's really good. I'm not going to go crazy with college football because of the Alabama LSU game being postponed, Ohio State, Maryland postponed. So you just have a light schedule of Florida and Arkansas at Florida. That'll be your biggest game. I'm looking forward to that. I like Florida in that. So let's get to the NFL. The Colts and the Titans. In this game where the Colts won, I'm going to tell you why they won. They're up 17. The Titans are up 17-10. The Colts drive, and they get an all-important field goal to make it 17-13 to end the second quarter. Third quarter, the Titans have issues on defense. I'm realizing that. The Colts drove all the way down the field, and the Colts converted 3 fourth-down plays in this game. So they were not even thinking about punting. Punting was off the schedule. This is not going to happen. We're not going to punt we didn't come down here to Tennessee to punt the football. We're going to go for it. Whatever happens, happens. We're just going to take that chance. The punter Sanchez of Indianapolis punted the ball one time the whole game. That should let you know that's not good news for Tennessee. Okay, let me continue. So 17-13, Indianapolis driving. This is the fourth down conversion they're trying to get. They were stopped on fourth down at the 1-yard line. They were stuffed. And Tennessee gets the ball back. All right, okay. You get stuffed at the 1-yard line. I didn't like to play with Jordan Will because it didn't make any sense. They didn't spread it out. That was a bad play call, but they got away with it. Because I was thinking Tennessee's going to get this ball. They're up 17-13. Henry's going to go all the way down the field, maybe 99-yard touchdown. Tennessee's going to take over. They're going to win at home. They're going to take over first place. Wrong answer. Their punter, Trevor Daniel, who they picked up from FedEx, punted the ball 17 yards. This is a special team implosion in this quarter, in this half. Punts the ball 70 yards. That momentum that Tennessee had is gone. And Indianapolis gets a second chance, and they cash in, where Nyheim Hines, who had 115 yards total offense and 2 touchdowns, scores on a run, 20-17. All right, Titans go 3 and out, and the Colts were solid on defense, and they got a nice front line, and they're physical. They block the punt for a touchdown, but T.J. Carey returns it for a touchdown. That was huge. EJ Speed showed some speed by blocking the punt. Now they're up 2 scores. So Tennessee, all right, to Tennessee's credit, they stayed with the running game, and Henry took over. I mean, he took over the game. They're going down the field. But the biggest play of the entire game, I'm going to tell you, the biggest play was a holding call. And that was huge. Holding call on Nate Davis. Because they were at the 18-yard line, they're driving in, and they got the momentum. They got the Colts on here. There's a holding call that bring the ball back. So now it's 3rd and 18. You can't use Henry, and they got stopped. And Gustowski, who's been all hot and cold, misses the field goal. That's game, because that gave the Colts momentum. They went down the field. Rivers, there's a 40-yard pass to Pittman, and then they went down the field and scored a game-winning touchdown. That was it. And I'm going to tell you, the Colts dominated the line of scrimmage from the offense and defense. And that's surprising because I always viewed a Vrabel team as a physical team, and they were pushed around at home by the Colts. The Colts are physical. Rivers, when he's on, they can be a problem. Now, he missed some receivers yesterday. He double clutched and missed a couple of guys in the end zone that cost him. It cost him a touchdown. And it didn't cost him – it It didn't cost them big time because they ended up eventually scoring the go-ahead touchdown, but that's something you got to watch out in the future. But the Colts, they're very physical. I was very respectful of the Colts. Now, the next game, Seattle at the LA Rams. The line here is minus 1.5, 1.5 for the Rams. I like the Rams in this game. I'm going to tell you why I like the Rams this game. Put your money on the Rams. They're very good in pass defense. Seattle likes to pass the ball because Carson's not there, their bell cow running back. So they got Russell Wilson who slings it all over the line. Russell Wilson, listen, his stats are off the chart. 2,541 yards passing, 28 touchdowns, 8 TDs. Goff was 13 TDs and 6 interceptions. But I like the Rams because Aaron Donald and company could get after Russell Wilson. Seattle has line issues. They're not running the ball well. Rams have an extra week off after losing Miami. They're going to be motivated. When you bet, I just want to give you advice. I'm not a professional gambler or any of that, but I know football. I've covered this for years, and I've been following it forever. The team that's home, that's coming off a loss, that has a week off, always and there are two evenly matched teams, slightly favor the team at home that's a little more desperate. I think Seattle's going to take a loss. It's going to be a close game. Goff, they have running back by committee, even though Seattle's pretty good on the run. Seattle's terrible. They're last in yardage attempts in passing, and Goff could get that off where Cooper Kupp and Woods could get going in the receiving game. Seattle gave up 10 yards per attempt last week against Buffalo. That's putrid. And I'm surprised because a Pete Carroll defensive team with Adams and KJ Wright and Dunlap and all those stars, they're going to get better, but not this week. I like the Rams this week. Now, my upset special of the week is the Buffalo Bills, who are 7-2 versus the Cardinals. This, let me see, is 115 plus for plus 2.5, 2.5 for this spread. Buffalo. Don't do that. Don't mess with that. I like Arizona, and I'm going to tell you why I like Arizona. Buffalo came off an emotional win versus Seattle. Very emotional win versus Seattle. They're traveling from Buffalo to Arizona to play an Arizona team that just lost to Miami. Arizona has to keep pace in the playoffs. They're home. You got two really good young quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. Allen is at time a little more mistake prone, even though he was flawless last week. I don't think he's going to be flawless this week. Kyler Murray is going to have a good game. Neither team runs the ball well. Singletary's pretty good. He's 386 yards rushing this year, but the Cardinals' best rusher is their quarterback. So down the line, they're going to have to get a bell cow running back to go up with what they have with DeAndre Hopkins. And, of course, you got the old man Fitzgerald there. You got Stephon Diggs for the Bills. You got Stephon Diggs versus DeAndre Hopkins is a receiver matchup. That's a good matchup. It's going to be close. I like the Cardinals at home. I'm going to ride the Cardinals. The Bills have won 6 of their last 7 games against the Cardinals. Don't worry about any of that. Don't go with that. Go with the circumstances because both these teams are evenly matched. If Arizona was traveling to Buffalo, I would pick the Bills. But the Bills, because I made that mistake last week where Seattle traveled to Buffalo and they were flat until the second half. The Bills will make it close, but the Bills, it was so emotional the way they beat a top-ranked Seattle team. They were home. Now they got to come back and play. And you got to play a very good Arizona team on the road. I like the Bills all day long. I like the Cardinals. I like the Arizona Cardinals all day long. If you're better, I'm just giving you good advice. I would put my money on the Arizona Cardinals. Okay. We're back here at Tell the Truth Radio, and I'm going to tell the truth when it comes to the sport of boxing. We have Kell Brook fighting Terrence Crawford. I had a chance to talk to Boxing Scene's Keith Idec, from CBS Sports. Here is the interview. Before I get to the interview, I do want to interject my opinion. Crawford should win. I think the problem that Crawford's going to give Brook is going to be bigger, naturally bigger. The problem that Crawford's going to give Brook is, in the history of the boxing, Marvin Hagler was really good at it, but the greatest switch hitter, as far as he can fight left-handed or right-handed, of all time is Terrence Crawford. I've never seen a fighter, because the guys switch to southpaw and they're sloppy. I've never seen a guy that could do this and fight and do it so well and natural like Crawford. I think that's a big advantage. One thing Brook can keep in his back pocket is the fact that Crawford does get hit a lot, because Crawford's a savage. And savages are going to come after you, and they're going to get hit a lot. So Brooks might have to hurt him early and then try to keep him at bay a little bit. If he doesn't do that, he's going to get beat up, because his body's taken a beating from Triple G and Errol Spence and all the wars he's been in. Crawford hasn't been in those kind of wars. Crawford's usually the one that's doing the initiation. But I give Brook a puncher's chance because of the fact that Crawford does get hit, and Brook is a bigger guy, and he's very accomplished. But I'm going to ride with Crawford in this. And after the interview with Keith Idec, I did have a chance to interview Crawford one-on-one when he fought Diaz, and I talked about the landscape of the welterweight division. So here's the interview with Keith Idec, and I'm going to follow it up with my personal interview with Crawford.
Crawford, 3.5 years, not since Errol Spence knocked him out in their title fight. So you don't know how much it's going to take out of him, having to squeeze his body down to 147 again. That's clearly a factor. The other obvious factor is that Terrence Crawford is arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Even though he's only 1 year younger than Kell Brook, he's 33. He turned 33 in September. Kell Brook turned 34 in May. He's a fresher fighter for sure than Kell Brook, because everyone remembers that, Kell Brook went through those two very damaging fights against Gennady Golovkin, and Errol Spence has suffered a fractured orbital bone on each side of his face in those two fights. The right side against Golovkin, the left side against Spence. Had to have surgery and plates inserted in his face and everything. So he's been through some physical, grueling type of fights that Terrence Crawford, thankfully for Terrence Crawford, has not been in. I mean, he's been in a couple of dogfights where he's had to dig down and win, but nothing where it was physically damaging to the point where it required surgery or anything like that. So he's definitely the fresher fighter. He's an exceptional fighter. I mean, there are no two ways about Terrence Crawford being one of the elite fighters in the entire sport.
Yeah. Now in this fight, Brook is going to have to start earlier, because Crawford's the type of guy that likes to start slow and diagnose you. And once he gets diagnosed, he gets you. And I think the key for Crawford, his power comes from his deadly accuracy.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a very good body puncher too. And as you said, Ron, once he takes a couple of rounds to break you down and kind of compute what you're about, then he starts breaking you down and dissecting you. And in his last fight, it was interesting because there was a point in the third round when he fought, his nickname is Mean Machine, but his Egidijus Kavalauskas was his mandatory challenger back in December at the Garden. Kavalauskas hit him with a right hand that seemed to, at least temporarily, made him hold Kavalauskas at the waist. He actually went down to one knee, and there was some discrepancy as to whether it should have counted as a knockdown or he was kind of pushed down a little bit by Kavalauskas. It was not counted as a knockdown, and Terrence Crawford has not been officially knocked down in his entire career. So that was a tenuous moment for him in the third round of that fight, something that people pointed to as a vulnerability as it relates to Crawford. But then the thing that I've always liked about Crawford and admired about him as a fighter is he's got real dog in him, in the sense that when his back is up against the wall or he's challenged, he really digs deep and fights out of it. And that's exactly what he did against Kavalauskas. He came back, beat him up for most of the rest of the fight, knocked him down once in the 7th round, twice in the 9th round, and finished him off in the 9th. So, that was a very good performance from Terrence Crawford. But Brook is a more talented fighter than Kavalauskas, obviously a more accomplished fighter as a former IBF welterweight champion. But he's got his hands full tomorrow night with one of the best fighters in the sport.
Yeah, me and you, we've done a lot of interviews. I could tell we've done a lot of interviews, because my next question was going to be, Crawford has he's a very nice guy. We've both interviewed him. outside the ring, but here's a mean, nasty, competitive streak inside him that makes him different from the other fighters.
He does. I mean, and a lot of the elite guys have that. That mean streak, that nastiness in him. And I don't have a personal problem with Terrence Crawford, but he can be difficult to deal with. I mean, there's no two ways about that. I mean, he can be surly sometimes, and that's fine. And we don't take any of that stuff personally. It's all part of the job, of course. But yeah, nice. Like he's a nice guy overall, I would say. But he's definitely got some edginess about him, and like every elite level fighter has a lot of pride and has a huge ego and doesn't take kindly to people like Kell Brook saying that he's going to do this, that, and the other thing to him tomorrow night. So I think he's going to look to punish Kell Brook in this fight. But it'll be interesting the first 6 or 7 rounds to see, how Crawford deals with Kell Brook's size, because Ron, another interesting factor going into this fight is there is not a rehydration clause that would limit the amount of weight that Kell Brook can put on from the time of the weigh-in, which was about, an hour and a half ago or so, until the time of the fight. About 30 hours will elapse between the weigh-in and the start of the fight. It's a lot of time to put on a considerable amount of weight. I would guess that Kell Brook, based on what he said, will probably put on about 20 pounds. So he's going to come into the super middleweight tomorrow night, whereas Crawford will not put on that much weight. Crawford is used to fighting bigger guys, but that's an interesting factor to look at in the fight.
Yeah, before I get to the next potential matchups, I consider Terrence Crawford the best switch hitter of all time. Marvin Hagler was very good, but I've never seen a guy that could hit right-handed and left-handed in such a smooth, natural way.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, too, Ron, is for all intents and purposes, Terrence Crawford is a southpaw. He's not really – technically, he's a right-handed fighter. But he winds up fighting, 3/4 of his fights at least out of a southpaw stance. So he's basically a southpaw. But you're right. I mean, he's equally adept at fighting from an orthodox stance and from a southpaw stance. And he's just so smart. I mean, the thing that I think a lot of people appreciate about Terrence Crawford is his ring IQ. He really knows how to break fighters down and attack weaknesses. And, again, he's a very good body puncher and a committed body puncher. Very smart in the ring. And, again, I hope it's a closer fight than the odds are suggesting that it will be. Crawford is about a 14-1 favorite at least, depending on which website you look at or sportsbook you go to. But he's a big favorite for a reason. If Kell Brook can turn back the clock a little bit, and if there's something left of Kell Brook from the guy who beat Sean Porter in 2014, we might have the type of fight that people will be talking about on Sunday. But I have a feeling that Terrence Crawford is just going to be way too much for this version of Kell Brook.
I totally agree. You would know better. I want to see Spence and Garcia winner, and then I want to see Sean Porter maybe fight Pacquiao, and you got Kell Brook and Crawford, and then all the winners of each of those fights just fight each other. I want to see the mega fight. I want to see Spence and Crawford, or Crawford and Pacquiao, or Crawford and Porter. I want to see that. What are the chances next year of that?
What the boxing world wants, what fans who pay their hard-earned money to support this sport, what they want is for Terrence Crawford to fight Errol Spence next.
Yes.
They're on the same schedule, basically, because Terrence Crawford is obviously fighting tomorrow night. Errol Spence will fight 3 weeks after that against Danny Garcia down in Arlington, Texas. If they both win, and there is some doubt about Spence in the sense that this is his first fight since he got hurt in the car accident about 13 months ago. People aren't quite sure if he's going to be what he was before the accident. He swears that he is and will be. So we'll see. But if he comes through the Danny Garcia fight the way that he thinks he will, and Terrence Crawford wins tomorrow night, there's no reason for that fight to not happen.
Yes.
I mean, people have to, promoters, Bob Arum in particular, who promotes Terrence Crawford, they have to have learned their lesson at this point that if you keep quote-unquote marinating fights until it's too late because a guy's going to get picked off or, God forbid, get in a car accident like Errol Spence is very lucky to have not suffered more damage than he did and have it impact his career more than it has from that car accident last year. So you just never know what's going to happen. It's outside of the heavyweight division, probably the biggest fight that can be made in boxing. Terrence Crawford's now 33 years old. Errol Spence is 30. Let's have it happen while people consider maybe Crawford in the back end of his physical prime. He probably is, but he's still an elite level fighter. So let's see that fight next. And it depends on a lot of factors, Ron, in the sense that, if you can't get a sizable crowd because of the pandemic, it's going to factor into how much they can be paid, and they want to be paid appropriately for that type of fight, which I understand. So there are a lot of outside factors that will determine whether they fight next, but ideally they should fight next.
Yeah, I have two more questions before I let you go. And speaking of that, I don't want to see Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, and Tank. I want to see all three, Tank Davis. I want to see all three of those fight each other. What are the chances of any of that happening next year?
I wish I could be more optimistic. Boxing being boxing and this being a business first and foremost, I think Teofimo Lopez will probably fight one more time at the lightweight limit. My best guess is that's going to be against Dejo at Madison Square Garden next year, or he'll make a mandatory defense of his IBF title against George Kambosos, who's an Australian fighter who's now his mandatory challenger. Not the type of fights that people want to see from Lopez after his career-changing performance against Lomachenko, but probably what we will see next from him. And then I think he'll move up to 140 to fight the winner of Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez, who will fight, for full supremacy in the 140-pound division sometime in the first third of next year.
Okay, go ahead.
No, as it pertains to Davis, I think Gervonta Davis, because he made weight so comfortably for the Leo Santa Cruz fight a couple of weeks ago, where he went to Floyd Mayweather's gym, he really locked himself down, he got a personal chef, and he did everything the right way. I think he feels more confident in fighting at 130 pounds than he did before, because he knows he can make the weight the right way. If that happens, there are a lot less options or appealing options for Gervonta Davis than if he were to continue or move back up to the lightweight division, where, as you mentioned, you have Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, if he's able to beat Luke Campbell whenever their fight is rescheduled.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great fights there among young, talented, powerful guys at lightweight. I just don't know how soon we'll see any of them.
All right, before I let you go, I got a guy who I'm in love with who's looking for the big fights. He's the up-and-coming guy, and I'm in love with him. Personal opinion is Julian Rodriguez.
Yeah, obviously I've been covering Julian for a very long time. My time at the Bergen Record and the Herald News in northern New Jersey, I've known Julian since he was 8 years old when I first saw him in the gym in Patterson. Great kid. He's about 25 years old now. He's overcome a shoulder injury that set him back a little bit. He had some surgery on the shoulder, and it just set him back a couple, because it was a nagging injury. But he's finally past that now. He won what equated to a tune-up fight a couple of weeks ago here in Vegas. He's ready in his next fight, according to his dad and his trainer, Alex Devia, who has told me they want to fight a legit 140-pound contender in their next fight on ESPN. That's what they hope to get. They've mentioned maybe Arnold Barboza Jr., who beat Alex Saucedo on the Lomachenko-Lopez undercard.
Okay.
Big win for Barboza. Maybe a guy like that, because they're all promoted by Top Rank. But they want to fight a legit guy in their next fight. They feel like the time is right now. He's 25. He's still in the heart of his prime. He feels healthy. He's a very talented kid. He was a 2013 National Golden Gloves champion at 141 pounds, and they want to take the right steps in 2021 for it to be a make or break year for his career.
I love that. Thank you very much. You're great as usual. Really appreciate the interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Ron. It's good to talk to you, man.
Okay.
You are in the middle of the storm. Provided you win this fight tonight, Saturday against Diaz, you got option with Porter, Thurman, or Spencer Brook, or Lemon Chico and Garcia. You seem like you're in the middle of a storm of great competition with all the great fighters and options that you have, provided you win the fight against Diaz.
Maybe.
Now, you're the best combination I've ever seen of a guy that can switch from left hand to right hand. When were you able to learn that skill?
I've been doing that since I was a kid.
Now, is there a possible match for Adrian Broner provided you win?
Who knows? Right now, my main focus is on Diaz.
What do you think the key to this winning against Diaz?
You said what?
The key to winning versus Diaz.
Just being myself.
Okay.
Well, next time we talk, I told you Knicks had a rough year this year. Regarding hard times. We're looking for a big show this weekend. This is your first fight in a big room at MSG. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. What does that mean for you as a great fighter right now to fight in the main room at MSG? It's a big thing.
I mean, it means a lot, being that, like you said, a lot of the greats have fought in there. But at the same time, I'm looking to make my own legacy.